Good night, everyone. Tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma Jazz Spirits Divine. I'm here to give you um, a word on tonight, and the title going to be Moses, Flee to Midian. And we left off yesterday that Moses was born, and that new king, he still want all the males to be killed. And so when the mother had Moses, she had to hid him because he was a special child. And she put him on the river, knowing someone gonna be out of the palace and babes at the same time who was gonna pull him out of the water. Today, lesson gonna be Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 through 25. Now Moses outgrown. Now remember, his own mother had nursed him, and then turned him back over to Pharaoh's daughter to continue on raising him. So now he's all grown up. He went out to where his own people were and watched them, in their hard labor. Remember, the king oppressing them, giving them hard labor and everything. And he saw the Egyptian beating a Hebrew. So one of his own people, so Moses is looking around first, just to see, if anybody see him, and then he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. So after he killed him, he hid him in the sand because he was beating up one of his own people. So we see that Moses knew that he is a Hebrew and looking out for his own people. So when he saw that they was getting beaten, he jumped in. So we also see that Moses was living in Egypt and seeing how the Israelites are being oppressed. Because Moses gonna be the one to release, go have them rescue them to be released from slavery. So he already in Egypt and see how they're being oppressed right now. So now this is the next day. He went out against his this time. So he went out again. Just the second time he went out. The first time he went out, he saw Egyptian beating up one of his kind. So now he going outside again the next day. This time it's two Hebrew person is fighting. They their own kind is fighting. So Moses asked, "Why are you hitting your fellow um person? Hebrew person?" They both is Hebrew and up there fighting. So Moses asked them why. So the man said, "Who made you rule? Who made you the judge over us?" He was being sarcastic. He also said, "Are you thinking of killing us as you killed that Egyptian?" Now remember, Moses was looking around. He thought no one saw him kill that Egyptian and then hide him in the sand. But this Hebrew person, his own people, had said, "Are you gonna kill us just like you did that Egyptian person?" So I mean, he saw when Moses thought nobody didn't saw. So now Moses afraid. He afraid because he thought no one saw him. So that made them, now this man get to so now Moses afraid that it may get to Pharaoh. The news might get to Pharaoh, but it did. Pharaoh heard, and he tried to kill Moses, but Moses had fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian when he had sat down by the well. So he went to Midian, he sat down by the well. I guess he was tired from the walking, and then a priest was there. And you remember when Jacob and his boys they was getting the land, and this is the only part of land that Pharaoh didn't buy. Pharaoh brought all their land and stuff. Remember they had that priest was the only one Pharaoh did not land he did not touch. So he arrived there with his priest said. This priest have 7 daughters, so they came to draw water and fill their bucket up with water and they feed that water with their for the flocks. Now some shepherd came along and drove them away. By Moses, remember Moses sitting there by the well. So Moses got up and he came to their rescue and water. He came to their rescue and also watered their for the flocks. So Moses Moses flee from Pharaoh and end up in Midian. And now Moses is sitting by a well. So there are priests there with 7 daughters, came to draw water and water their father flocks. So this shepherd came along, drove them away. Not only that Moses rescued them, but he also watered their flocks. So he did a good deed. And the daughters gonna go and tell their father the good deed that Moses did. So when the daughters had returned home, see, they were supposed to be out there watering the flocks and everything, but they had to do it because Moses did it. So the father said, "How come y'all back so soon?" So they answered, Egyptians rescued us from the shepherd, and he even draw water, for them and watered the flocks. And now the daughter had all good news to tell her father about Moses. So their father said, "Why have you invite him, over here to something to eat?" He did all this good do, and they went home and telling their father about all this here. So the father said, "How come you invite them? Invite him to the house. Invite him something to eat." So Moses agreed to stay with the man, and remember, he have 7 daughters. So he gave one of the daughters, to Moses. I can't pronounce her name, in marriage. So his daughter had given birth to a son. And Moses named son Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreign in a foreign land." He become a stranger in a foreign land. So that means King in Egypt had died. Remember that mean king, he wanted all the boys to be dead. So now he's dead. So they're telling Moses, the king that was in Egypt, he is now dead. So the Israelite is groaning in their slavery and cried out for help, and their slavery had went up to God. So they done cried out. They've been crying out to God for a long time, because when God come to rescue them, it's gonna be 400 years. So God is preparing Moses. That's why Moses was born to do to lead the Israelite. To help. So this slavery had went up to God, and God heard their groaning and remembered his covenant. So God looked on the Israelite and he was concerned about them. He was concerned about them. So that's why he gonna be pushing Moses. He gonna meet Moses by the burning bush and give Moses his purpose, what he want him to do. So we see that Moses flee. He married the priest's daughter, and the Israelites are being oppressed by the Egyptians, but their cry had went up to God. So now God is involved. God is about to rescue them. All their crying, had went up to God. So the Israelite lives about to turn. So the story of the Israelite begin to turn from oppression, fear and slavery, in Egypt to a malicious deliverance by God. So they're like about to turn because God about to do a deliverance. God about to rescue them from Pharaoh, about to rescue them from slavery. That's why Moses was born. He about to equip Moses to be a good leader. So Moses gonna be talking about how he can speak well, and he gonna come up with all kinds of excuses. But God chose you. God chose you. God placed you in your mother womb, and your mother already knew you was a special child. But he gonna have all kinds of excuses. So God intervention in their life is more than an act of compassion. It is also, an act of faithfulness. Now God had made promises. You know, promises to Israel, Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob. So the time had come for God to do what He had promised. Cause sometimes God can take a long time. But He never break no promise. Cause we always say, "Okay, God, it's about time for you to step in now." Okay, so that's what they're saying. Come for God to do what He had promised. So God timetable for fulfilling His promise, is perfect. You know, God's timing always perfect. So during the time of the oppression, God had multiplied His people, and now He will make them into a nation. You know, um, he will give them he will give them a land of their own and bless them. Excuse me. just as the land of their own and bless them, just as in our lives. You know, God sees everything. You know, God saw they were being oppressed. You know, God heard their crying, but God have a good timetable of His own, a divine time. You know, God watch His own time when He gonna step in. You know, He always see what we doing. He sees everything that go on. You know, He hear everything that's go on, but He have a timetable that He gonna move on His own time. You know, so everything is keeping promises, but yet He is not bound to any timetable that we set. Because see, God not bound to the timetable that we set. You know, we need God. We need you to move right now, God. He's not gonna move when we say move. You know, He gonna move when His time is right to move. You know, so Table Turner has said, but only to His own perfect timing. You know, so Moses, he tried to make sure Moses tried to make sure no one is watching before he killed the Egyptian guy. But guess what? Someone was watching. You know, he had to look around first to see if anybody was watching. You know, and see if anybody was watching. So he thought no one was watching. He killed the Egyptian guy and then hide him in the sand. You know, so then later on, you know, he seen two Hebrew person fighting. He all he did was ask the question, why are both of y'all fighting? You both are the same kind, the same religion. Why are y'all fighting? You know, they being sarcastic. Who made you a ruler over us? You know, are you gonna kill us like you did that in Jessica? And see, Moses was so afraid because he thought no one saw. You know, so watching before he killed the Egyptian. You know, but as it turned out, someone did see, you know, and Moses had to flee, you know, the country. Moses thought he got away with it, you know, until his own people saw. There ain't nobody know Egyptian, it wasn't nobody else, his own people saw, you know. He thought he was getting away with it, you know, but sooner or later, at the end, we will still have to face God and His elevation of our action. You know, God gonna have a long list of what all we did at the last of our days. You know, He gonna be no matter how Moses thought he was gonna get away with it. Eventually, he gonna have to face God at the end of his days. You know, we all got to face God at the end of our days, and trust me, God gonna have a long list. You know, we might forget, but He don't forget. We have an organized God that He know of everything to escape punishment for killing the Egyptian. You know, He ran. You know, after he knows somebody saw, he know gonna get to Pharaoh, so he want to hurry up and run. You know, to escape punishment for killing Egyptian. You know, Moses ran away. You know, to Midian. You know, he became a stranger in a strange land. You know, he was a stranger in that strange land and bumped up into 7 women. Happened to be the priest's daughter. You know, so he become a stranger in a strange land, separated from his home and family. It took many years afterwards, you know, for this incident for Moses to be ready to serve God. You know, so it was years before he tried to communicate with God, because by he done killed that Egyptian, he thought he got away with it. But all us, you have to realize, no matter how you think you're gonna get away with something, looking around and see nobody look, but guess what? Our heavenly Father can seize everything. Ain't no such thing you can think you can get away with anything, you know. So since he know Pharaoh know, since he know that God know, he still away from God for a while, you know, until he clear his conscience, you know. And so for the serve God. So Moses to be ready. So now he ready to serve God. But he trusted God instead of fearing the king. I put that out days ago. You know, you got to fear God. That's me. I just walk up and down, do what I got to do. You know, you have to fear God and not evildoers. You know, and that's what he said. This was an evil king. You know, he wanted all the males dead. You know, so imagine what he would did to Moses. You know, so Moses handled, these shepherds so easily in the Egyptian because he is well trained in the Egyptian military. So Pharaoh's daughter raised him very well. He was able to kill the Egyptian and just slinging on under the sand. And then the shepherd was out there trying to run all the 7 girls stuffed rocks away. And then Moses can tear you up just with his hands because he is well trained. The Pharaoh daughter took good care of him. He is well trained. So God rescue. God rescue doesn't always come to a moment that we want it. You know, we can cry, scream and holler, God. They're just like the Israelites. They cried for God for 400 years. God gonna come when he say he ready to come. So God rescue doesn't always come in the moment that we want him to. God had promised, to bring the Hebrew slaves out of Egypt. So people had wanted a long time. People had wanted a long time for that promise to be kept. We all like that. Well, God, you promise. God, you promise. And trust him. God come in his own time because he'll never break no promise. But God rescued them when he knew the right time had come. So God know the best time to come. When you feel that God had forgotten you, in your trouble, remember that God have a time schedule that we can't see. I'm going to say that again. God has a time schedule that we cannot see. See, God have his own list. God have his own time list. A list that we cannot see. So when God be waiting for the right time, he watching his own time schedule. So Moses had fled to Midian after murdering a Egyptian person. Moses escaped, into a strange land. And there he married a priest's daughter, and had become to be a shepherd. So that's the story of Moses. Moses killed that Egyptian person, and that's why he had flee to Midian. He flee to a strange land, where the priest was at, that have 7 daughters. The 7 daughters had went to their father and had number good news about Moses. So the man was just so pleased and amazing with how he helped his daughter. So he said, okay, I'm going to give you one of my daughters. And he married the daughter. Then he had a son, So he started living a life in a strange land that he entered, So that's all the show. That's all the word I have for you on today. Y'all have a blessed night, and I see y'all in the next video.